also, like, I hope that that's kind of something that maybe lots of people experience. Like, we're living in a time when, like, massive changes are happening, and I imagine that a lot of people feel like they could and should and want to do more to be parts of these kind of big movements.
Hi, I'm Will from NME, and I'm here with Jack and Chris from the Magic Gang for the latest in our In Conversation with series. How are you guys doing? You all right?
Very well, thank you.
Yes, not too bad.
Good. Whereabouts are you in the world at the moment?
We're both in London. I'm in Hackney.
And I'm in Peckham.
Oh, very nice. Have you been cooped up in the same place for the whole of lockdown, or have you been in a few places?
I've managed to stay settled here, which I'm pretty impressed with myself about.
Yeah, same here, more or less. Like I went to see my parents for a bit, but mostly I've been here.
And have the four of you in the band managed to see much of each other since March?
Yeah, more recently we've done a little bit better with that. We've managed to kind of come together for a few bits of, like, you know, working kind of promo stuff, which is kind of strange after like so long of doing everything over Zoom. And
you were on tour when lockdown was imposed, right, with Blossoms?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What was it? Did you have to have a conversation about whether you did the shows or not? Because I know at that point you could have legally still done a show, but was it more of a moral thing of should we be doing this?
It was certainly getting that way, yeah. I think the last it was kind of like, it was starting to get into that zone of like, we were kind of questioning it a little bit, but I think they did really well to pull it at the right time. So fortunately, it didn't feel like our decision to make totally. I feel like their timing was pretty spot on. And
the last show was in Bournemouth, right? Where you're all from.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
There's some weird metaphor going on there about...
I know.
It was really strange. It definitely had a weird vibe. And it was only like, we were maybe 4 or 5 days into the tour as well, to suddenly have it halted in our hometown was really quite surreal. You
had the album all ready to go before lockdown, right?
Yeah.
We recorded it this time last year. It was meant to come out a lot sooner this year.
Did you start having conversations immediately when you knew you wouldn't be able to tour right around the album about pushing it back?
Yeah. We had to make the decision fairly quickly, and we were umming and ahhing a little bit over it. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things where you have to decide on the spot, and we made the call to push it back, which I think was the right thing to do, because we just had no idea where things were going to be. It was supposed to come out in May, and it just was like, felt way too kind of raw to do that. You recorded the album in Atlanta, right? Yeah. How did you come to that decision? Was it to go out and see a producer in particular? Yeah. It was to work with Ben Allen, who's based out there. He's from Atlanta. He's got a studio out there. And yeah, we wanted to work with him. So it was kind of like, it was just a case of going to where he was at. And did you take the album pretty much done, or did you give it some space to be carved out when you got there? We actually kind of, for the first time, sort of did a little bit of pre-production, I suppose. Like, he was hearing a lot of the album before, like all the demos. He had time to live with them, basically. So by the time we got out there, he had like notes on like arrangements and production ideas and stuff like that. I suppose with the first album, a lot of it was just about getting into a room and trying to recreate the live energy and literally just playing the instruments together the same way we had been doing for the few years before. But with this one, it was like a lot more about deconstructing each song and trying to think a little bit more specifically about each tune. And now it's done and it's out. Is there things immediately that you can pinpoint that are different about this from the debut record? I personally think like the lyrics are a lot more fun to sing. The words kind of are saying a little bit more, I don't know, they just seem a little bit more direct, and therefore they just feel more kind of fun to perform, basically. One thing I read about the album, which I really loved, was the tracks Make a Sound and Death of a Party, about the
the same, your two perspectives on one night out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you explain the situation? Because it sounds great.
Yeah, I can. We both went to the same party while we were writing the album, and then we kind of respectively accidentally both wrote tunes about the same night, but we had two very different kind of experiences of the night. Like, the party took place on two different floors of the same house. Chris was on the bottom and I was on the top. And what's really weird about it is there's a lyric in Make a Sound where it's like, I'm saying that I can hear two people having an argument, and I'm referring to like, basically kind of this thing. I'm referring to what Chris is kind of singing about, essentially. So it's like it's a very weird accidental crossover.
Yeah, we just kind of ended up using the same. We just sort of set similar source material for the lyrics.
And you didn't talk about the fact that you were both going to write a song about it. It just happened.
No. It just happened. Yeah.
But then when that happened, we were like, right, that feels like a nice kind of jump off point. We didn't like explore it too much. It wasn't like we weren't going to try and make a kind of concept out of that, but it just felt like we were kind of accidentally on the same page to begin with, because they were both written pretty early, those tunes.
Do you often have these like happy accidents of ending up being completely on the same page when you weren't communicating about it?
Feel like in terms of influences that happens every now and then. Like, we'll both be, well, all of us, we kind of sometimes dig in the same album without realizing, but it's never happened. I don't think it's happened like that lyrically before, but it makes sense it happened because the kind of principle when it came to writing songs for this album is that we were all trying to be more honest, or even a little bit like clearer, like when like describing situations and painting pictures and telling stories. So the fact that there was some kind of crossover like that, it kind of made sense.
And talking about being more honest, I thought I really liked the song "The World Outside My Door," which I thought was quite a brave thing, because it's talking about when the Extinction Rebellion protests were happening, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's quite brave in that situation to say, like, I'm not really doing enough.
Yeah, it was, thanks. I think it was like, I feel like it was written from like an honest place.
Yeah.
And again, like, I definitely was maybe exercising that kind of idea of trying to be a little bit more open with things. Also, like, I hope that that's kind of something that maybe lots of people experience. Like, we're living in a time when like massive changes are happening, and I imagine that a lot of people feel like they could and should and want to do more to be parts of these kind of big movements. So I hope that people kind of can relate to it.
And do you take a lot of hope from seeing movements like that happening?
Yeah, I mean, we all do, like, absolutely. Who doesn't? It's especially when it feels like something kind of like monumental, when you suddenly can feel that there's something greater than everyone as individuals happening. You know what I mean? When it feels like it's on that scale, and when you don't see it coming, it's obviously exciting. And
is your gut reaction for those kind of moments always to write about it, or is that something that you've learned recently? No,
I think that, I mean, I'm only talking for myself here, but the only way that I could write about something that's happening on that scale is to try and give an account of my interpretation of it, or maybe not even try and do it. If what I'm thinking about happens to include something like that, then that's the only way that I'm going to really ever be able to write about something like that. It's down to personal experience.
And do you think that, you know, it's a personal interpretation of that thing, but you're also within that, you're also saying this is a good thing that's happening? Do you feel like an obligation to do that as an artist?
Personally, not. No. I think that music for us is kind of, I mean, it depends what you listen to music for. Like, I listen to music because it is something to kind of escape to and spur on your imagination. And if the music that I like happens to be talking about stuff like that, then that's great. Like, but it's not a game changer for me. So I'm not as an artist, I don't think I would set out to do that personally.
Talk a bit about lockdown. How were you feeling at the start? You'd just come off tour, you had an album you didn't know what to do with. How were you coping?
I think for me it was about kind of not really trying to like ignore it in a way, and just trying to sort of I mean, I was isolating myself anyway because we had to, but even mentally I think I'd kind of had to kind of switch off and sort of indulge in escapism for a bit. So I was just writing a lot and watching a lot of like old films and just trying to kind of anything that doesn't reflect the current reality was my initial approach to dealing with it.
What kind of things did you find yourself writing?
I was writing a lot of optimistic lockdown themed song. It was all optimistic. It wasn't dread filled. It was kind of like, it's going to be fine. That was the kind of sentiment I was going for.
And have you returned to any of those songs later on that you
wrote? They seem a bit more sort of saccharine now because it feels like that's what everyone's been doing.
And then you started writing songs for fans, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so fans were separated from their loved ones and sent you messages about their experience, and then you would write songs based on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was mostly Jack and Angus who did that, so...
You definitely knocked out one or two. One.
Yeah, I did one, yeah.
What was the thinking behind that idea?
To be honest, that was a genius idea from Angus. I suppose it's just a way of like doing something to stay connected with people after having the tour cancelled. I think it was also just a good opportunity to like, you kind of don't get the chance to respond to every message you get through the band account. So I think it was a good way of kind of getting back to people who maybe have messaged you in the past and you've been a bit rubbish at replying to them, sort of thing.
Were there any that you wrote that you thought were too good to give away and you've kept them for something in the future?
I heard a couple of Gus's ones that I was like, oh, that's very good. Maybe we should save that.
I mean, it's a bit of a dangerous one to answer, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's true. Don't know if I want to respond to that one, Will.
The songwriting credit goes to someone in your DMs.
Yeah.
Were there any particularly like overwhelming situations that people gave? You know,
there was. Do you know what? There was hundreds actually. There was actually.
Can you remember any of them?
Not enough to kind of do it justice. I remember a lot of themes. There was just a lot of general sort of themes of separation and heartbreak, and unrequited love, I think, was one of them in there. There was definitely one of those. Yeah, there was hundreds. Do you know what was really ultimately amazing about it was that how transparent people were and how people felt confident enough in sending us a lot of this potentially quite personal information, you know. Some
of the kind of the details were the kind of points of inspiration. Like there would kind of be really like sort of beautiful little bits of detail that was the lyrics were kind of all there, sort of thing. So it's just like, yeah, like Chris said, it's the honesty that was inspiring about it.
I feel like everyone kind of got everything out in those first few weeks. Like I spoke to some of my oldest friends more than I have in years, because you're in lockdown and you're like, what do I miss? I can't remember. And you realise what you missed straight away.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a couple of people talk about that, like the feeling very, very grateful for all the relationships you have. And also I think people are just quite bored as well, right? Got time to Zoom you 5 times a day.
They've slowly tailed off now. People are allowed to go to the pub, so I think the house party era is now past, unfortunately. And you also did a video for Take Back the Track based around that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that, obviously that must have been like a spur of the moment thing. Did you have a concept planned initially that you had to change?
Yeah, we were going to go and shoot an actual music video. There was a treatment for it and everything. Not that it's not an actual music video, but we were going to go out into the world and do it. And there was really good treatment and stuff. And then Georgina quite amazingly came up with this whole new concept at the drop of a hat. It was really impressive, actually.
that song's about you going out to a club, right, Jack?
Yeah, me and Chris were both out, and and they played a tune, and I ran over to the DJ to find out what it was, and now it's like a kind of band favourite. I think we were like walking on stage to it, and then Chris wrote all the lyrics about that night out, and that kind of moment of my being captivated by the tune.
Am I right in thinking it was Sister Sledge?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, which song?
It's called Pretty Baby.
Okay.
It's a really, really fucking great song.
Yeah. So I guess we're kind of getting towards the end of lockdown. It kind of feels like it, but no one really knows. Mm-hmm. Are you able to put any plans in place? You've got a tour for next year, right?
Yeah, we're supposed to be touring in March. Hopefully it goes ahead. We're kind of continuing the Blossoms tour, and then I think we're going straight into headline shows from that. So that's the kind of, I think we've got a couple of sort of in-stores dotted about toward the end of the year as well, but hopefully everything goes ahead.
And is there one thing that I'm sure playing a gig is one, but is there anything you're really itching to do when you can after lockdown?
I don't know. I'd like to go abroad, maybe. I'd like to, I think you need that kind of personal or mental reassurance that it is possible to be mobile and go somewhere.
Anything for you, Jack?
No, I'm going to second what Chris said. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Expanding your boundaries in a very literal sense.
Yeah. I feel like everyone's brains have got a lot smaller over the last month. It's time to slowly expand. Yeah, playing shows in Europe, of course, as well. That kind of combines the two. That's like getting a holiday and playing gigs, which is, as good as it gets.
Yeah, that is really as good as it gets.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, guys, and congratulations on the new album.
Thank you so
very much.
Thank you.